Hello, I'm Sarah Grady Ackerman. Water is the lifeblood of Florida. It surrounds us, it's underneath us, it falls on us. Margaret Tolbert has combined the arts and sciences of Florida's freshwater springs in her book Aquafarius, a 2010 Florida Book Awards gold and silver medal winner in 2 categories. Thank you so much, Margaret, for being here, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
This has to be exciting, especially winning 2 medals in 2 categories.
It was an intense validation. I was so excited about these awards.
And this, I understand, this happened kind of fast too. Tell us a little background about Aquafarius.
It's kind of happened in 20 years and 6 months. Because I had been an artist painting the springs for years and writing about the springs, and I'd watched them change. So while I wanted to do an art book about my work, but also make it about the springs and how exciting the knowledge is about the springs, but also how they're threatened and how, what hasn't changed for thousands of years is changing a lot in 20 years.
So as much as you wanted to share the beauty of the freshwater springs, you also wanted people to understand the impact that pollution is having.
Yes.
Just quickly share something maybe that disturbed you the most.
Yes, I would go, for example, Fanning Springs was always my favorite crystalline springs, where you could, pick up the pebble on the bottom, and it was so beautiful every time for me to paint there. And then it went from first to second magnitude. It lost about 30% of its flow. It turned from blue to green. Sometimes it has almost poisonous levels of nitrates in it. Wow. So I was stricken. It was like I lost my friend, and the friend for the whole county, for everyone that comes there. Wow. It's still going, but it's very, very compromised.
Well, it's powerful information. And on the flip side of that, what, just even from doing this book, was so exciting that you learned or wanted to share with people?
I would go to working group meetings, or I would meet all these extreme cave divers and specialists, and I'd find out about 200-year-old crayfish, and I would find out about dating water. Some of the water that comes from the springs is 1,000 years old or 400 years old on the Wassissa group, for example, and then one right next to it, instead of 450 years old, is 30 years old, meaning it's been in the tunnels of the aquifer for 30 years instead of 450, or coming through the pores, coming through spaces as large as caverns, as ballrooms. It's just this world under our feet, and we have no idea. And I don't dive. I free dive, so I don't do extreme cave diving, so I have no idea, but I listen to these stories and it's fascinating.
Yeah. And so you have been, you'd mentioned at the beginning, painting for 20 years.
Yeah, at the springs, and they captivated me because it was about reflection and refraction in these crystalline spaces, and it was the kind of work I was doing before was still life, and sort of philosophy I used for that. And then I found out I could enter one of these crystalline spaces, the springs, and I fell in love with them. And they also represent a kind of paradise to other people around the world. Some of my work is about the art of the trade routes. It's about history and travel and searching for something. And this was often what these people were searching for. This kind of beauty, the water in this situation, it's like a dream. So,
well, this is obviously something that's been so near and dear to your heart, and to not only win the silver in the visual arts category, but then to win the gold. What does that mean to you personally?
I really think it's validation for taking the springs to a larger audience, because people around the world respond to our springs. They represent so much to them, and I think this equips me to take this book to people and really have an audience and talk to them about it. And people are unaware of the problems with the springs, and I hope as they become aware of my art, then they can become aware of the springs and participate in helping and enjoy these springs. I mean, it's a eureka moment for someone to go to the springs and put on a mask and go underwater. It really sometimes changes their life at this other world. So I hope it reaches more people that way.
Right, so really your goal is to engage, but also to educate.
Yes.
And I understand part of the proceeds of this book. Tell us about them.
We give a part of the proceeds to any of the proceeds, so it's not profits, but to Springs projects, for the Friends of Springs. We're trying to get one for a dye trace study for Fanning Springs, for example, which is a fascinating way of they put dye and in areas and then see how long it takes to come out at the springs, and so they can trace the areas that influence the springs. So, and also promote, for example, trying to get West Skiles videos out to the public so they'll understand more about the springs and this magical world. But it's exciting in that respect. So.
Well, it's really an amazing book to go through with the pictures and the paintings and everything. So, again, Aquafarius by Margaret Ross Tolbert. Thank you so much, Margaret, for being here and spending some time with us.
Yeah.
Production of this program is made possible in part by a grant from the Florida Humanities Council. Additional support comes from the Florida State University Libraries.